Morning, everybody. Combo Floyd here. I'm on my front porch this morning because it is gorgeous outside here. This is our yard. We have this beautiful farm. That's my garden that is slowly fading away. But I'm here today and very, very grateful for this beautiful day because it's been, I'll be just honest with you, a hard week in terms of critique for me. The reality is that when we put ourselves out there as writers, we're going to get feedback. We might be asking for feedback. We might have beta readers or editors or folks that we've brought in and asked specifically to give us feedback on our work. But we're also going to just get people giving us feedback even when we didn't really ask for it. So I'll just tell you a little bit about my week, and I'll tell you some stuff that I've learned maybe this week and stuff I've learned before, and maybe it'll be helpful to you. So this week I had, in the course of about 12 hours, I got an email through my website where somebody said F you to me. That was all the content. So that was one thing. I mean, mostly I can blow that off. Then I got an email from someone who had subscribed to my list, my mailing list, and then unsubscribed and said, at last, when she got unsubscribed. And so she took the time to send me a personal email that said that. So then there was that. And then I had a friend unsubscribe from my list, which I expect is probably about her more than about me, but still kind of a little bit hurtful, especially because that friend is a writer. So hopefully what I'm doing is relevant to her. And then yesterday I got an email from someone I don't know who subscribed to my mailing list and who then sent me 2 pages of feedback on a sample chapter that I give away for people just to learn a little bit about one of my books. Yeah, just lots of feedback about how I'd written the characters and the plot and all kinds of stuff. Of course, this is a book that's been published, so this isn't something that I'm going to go back necessarily and change because it's already out in the world, but also because the feedback wasn't really it wasn't really germane, to be honest. So yeah, so I got a lot of feedback this week that I didn't ask for, and probably just because of where I am in my life just at the moment, it was a little bit particularly painful to me. So that's just going to happen, and I am not one of those people that's going to tell you just to get a thicker skin, in the sense that, you just need to be toughen up and get over it and ignore it, because I'm not like that. So that's not advice I can give and be honest with. But you do have to have a tough skin, in the sense that you can't let that deter you. You can't let that stop you from writing or from sharing your work. Because if you do, then honestly, you will just stop forever, because that feedback is always going to come. So here's a couple things I do. One thing I do is I don't respond to feedback pretty much anytime unless I've asked for it. So like this person that sent me 2 pages of unsolicited feedback yesterday, I just wrote and said, thanks for your comments. I hope you have a good day. She tried to continue engaging because I think she knew she had overstepped, but I just kind of tried to be kind but not engage that. So that's one thing, is that I don't engage feedback that I didn't ask for. Feedback I did ask for, sometimes it's hard anyway. So I tend to try to listen. I try to keep the feedback coming to me via email if I can, or via writing, because it's easier for me to then think about it and process it for later. I don't do particularly well. It's very hard for me to take feedback face to face, just because of who I am as a person. And so I just tend to try to mediate that a little bit. And then when I do get feedback I did ask for, I don't respond for at least 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours, sometimes a couple weeks, because I have to get perspective on the feedback before I respond. My first reaction to most things in life is emotional, and emotional is not necessarily productive in those kinds of conversations. So I try to wait a day, maybe 2 days, maybe a week before I respond. It's just the healthier way for me and for the people who I've asked to give me feedback. Couple other things I do. I do my best, and it's not possible, obviously, since this week was just an example of that, to not make space where unsolicited feedback can reach me. So I try not to even use language that invites that kind of feedback in emails I send. I try not to let it come back to me in my what I think of as my personal spaces. So that would be like here at this farm, in my email, which feels very much like it's coming into my house. I just try to keep those spaces open. So I do surveys. I like to get feedback. It's helpful to me, but I'll do a survey so that that feedback sits somewhere and I can go read it when I'm emotionally in a place that feels good. So I leave that feedback separate from myself. Or I encourage people to give me reviews, and I always want honest reviews, but I suggest that they do that on Goodreads or Amazon or iBooks or Kobo, or Smashwords or somewhere that isn't coming to me directly. Then again, I can go read those if I choose to, and you may choose not to. That may be the healthiest thing for you, when I'm ready. So I try to keep that kind of feedback as much as possible in places that I can go and receive it when I'm able to, and keep it away from me when I'm just not at a place where I'm going to take it well. So those are some of the things that I do. You will definitely get feedback. You will definitely get feedback you didn't want. You'll definitely get feedback that isn't kind. I mean, there's a difference between critical feedback and unkind feedback. Critical feedback might be hard to take, but it's meant in the spirit of improving your work. Unkind feedback is sometimes attacking you, or it's coming out of an impetus about that person, which is where most of this feedback I got this week comes from. So you have to just be prepared for it. So when it does come, here are two things I do. I usually share that. Like I run a couple of groups for writers, and so I often put the work, that kind of critique up there. I do it primarily to be transparent for this kind of thing, to show people that this stuff happens and that we can all kind of come together and be okay through it. But I also do it because sometimes, like happened yesterday, people really remind me that I'm doing good work, that they appreciate what I'm doing. And that can really be a balm when you've had some really, hard days with this kind of stuff. So that's one thing I do. And then the other thing I do is I have a clip file of all of the really positive feedback I've gotten as a writer. And on the hard days, I read that and I just sit with it. And I try to let that overwhelm the negative stuff. It doesn't always work. Obviously, this is still kind of bothering me, so that's why I'm sharing it today. But it's a good way to kind of just keep things in perspective. So I guess the final word I would leave with you is just remember that you will be subject to feedback. And so, excuse me, as a member of the literary community, show kindness when giving feedback to other people. Really measure what you say. Think about whether you are the person that needs to say it in this moment. My friend Pat Moncure Thomas taught me this. Are you the person to say it? Is this the moment to say it? Does it need to be said? Ask yourself these questions and sit with that. And if you are, make sure it's about improving that person's work and not about meeting your own needs. So, and of course, make sure the person has asked for feedback first. I have a habit sometimes of giving feedback, giving advice. It's sort of a cultural moment I think we're in where we're all giving advice without being asked for it. So just be sure the person really wants to hear what you have to say, and that you've earned the right to say it to them. I have a policy now, like on my Facebook pages, but particularly my personal Facebook page. If I don't know you and you come to make a critique of what I say, and the first interaction I have with you is a critique, I delete the message. I just don't engage it, because I feel like people really have to earn the right to make that kind of commentary. So those are just some of the things I do to manage critique. Apparently, I also make videos, which is already making me feel better. So I'd love to hear what you guys do when you get hard critique. How do you respond to it? Do you have any sort of practices around that help you bear up under it? Yeah, share those in the comments if you would. I'd really like to know. So I'm Andy Cumbo Floyd of andylit.com. I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. If you're here in the States, enjoy your holiday weekend. And thanks to all the folks that work for us and keep us going. Happy Labor Day. Bye.